to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moment of silence for Veterans Day tomorrow. Please be seated. Start with citizen concerns. Anyone here to speak on something not on the agenda? Yes, sir.
I'm Leroy McRoberts. I had a complaint filed against me for my trucks. I'd just like to come to a resolution.
John, you want to speak to this?
John Palolo, Director of Planning and Zoning. You may recall some weeks ago, a neighbor of Amanda and Leroy's neighborhood stopped in to visit about her concerns regarding her neighborhood, specifically the McRoberts and their operation of a over-the-road trucking company out of a close to a 2-acre parcel that they reside on. The Planning and Zoning Office was in the midst of an investigation in that, and we've determined the McRoberts technically are in violation. A personal note from your zoning director: these are the tough ones. These are the ones where you've got some people that are trying to make a living. Small business, really the epitome of small business, something that I'm sure at least my office has totally supported, and your economic development department totally supports, but technically a violation, and we've been working with the McRoberts since to resolve the issue. We've got a plan in place, and I think Mr. McRoberts is here today to give you some insight as to the hardships that's creating. Is that fair? Okay.
I mean, it seems like it's a personal vendetta for this Pat Chrysler with us, and we don't even know what the problem really is. We support everything in Sergeant Bluff. I have a hard time with it. I just want to know what we can do. I don't have the money to add on to my buildings and try to get everything inside.
Do you have a plan with planning and zoning?
As far as what? What we're going to do?
Yeah.
You want me to walk through it, Leroy?
Yeah.
Okay. These are the high points of a meeting we had, let's say 10 days, 2 weeks ago, or plus. Basically, it was a plan where all the violations, which consist of tractors, trailers used both for transportation purposes as well as storage, and all business inventory is removed from the parcel unless it can be concealed from public view from the right-of-way or from any other parcel inside a fenced-in area or a structure. We did our last on-site this afternoon. We knew the McRoberts would be here, kind of wanted to see. In addition to all the items that I've listed, the other issue was we also have to shield any employees' vehicles that are brought to the site. We still have some violations. If there's been any improvements, it appears to be in the area of employee vehicles. I don't know if that's because they've been told not to bring them or it was just a day when none were there, to be honest with you. There is some concerns. When we last visited, the McRoberts shared with me the fact that they had the intent at that time of checking with contractors. I think one in particular had already been contacted for either an addition to the existing structure or a separate building. What I'm hearing now is that the expense to do that seems to be prohibitive. Based upon our plan, which was to get everything off-site and to a legal location, And at that time, there was at least a statement was made in our meeting that he was going to go in with several other trucking companies that had similar issues, try to find a site. I think in some phone conversations since our meeting, it's turned out that the location they want is, again, it's an expense issue, much more expensive than they predicted. So the plan is still to remove everything from the parcel, get it somewhere until such time he has structures or fencing or something in place to bring what he can bring back and operate within the ordinances. There's a 7-prong test. He meets 5 of those. The 2 where he's having an issue are basically bringing employees' vehicles on site, visible, and he's having tractors, trailers, and business inventory outside. I think Mrs. Chrysler's issue is a combination of the things she sees that obviously are business equipment and vehicles, but there's also probably some personal property that the McRoberts, as well as any other rural Woodbury County citizen, can have in a rear yard, wreck vehicles, personal trucks, those kinds of things. Those will not be part of our discussions nor part of any agreement. They can remain as long as they're not used in the business. We also allow a single tractor trailer to be parked in view if that tractor trailer is the primary vehicle used to go to and from work. Countywide, we have these out there all over. Some have the facilities to locate everything they own in their business inside. The McRoberts are a little bit of an anomaly because they've grown. They've got employees. They've got multiple trucks and tractors and semis. We just need to either get them off-site or get them shielded. We've talked about fencing. Because of the size of some of this equipment, the fence is probably going to be a bigger eyesore than the actual thing you're trying to conceal. Questions?
What's the kind of timeline that you have given in order to both ask the McRoberts to conform to any zoning order? Okay.
The letter we sent out in our agreement in our meeting was November 15th. We would review compliance at that time.
Compliance must be complete at that time, or efforts must be made toward compliance in a way that shows a good faith?
We were, like many of our complaint processes, we try to give people time to become compliant and then try to measure compliance on a time frame. And if, for example, we see no compliance at all by November 15th, we would probably begin review of a citation issue, get the county attorney's office involved and do that. We've discussed that issue in some specifics with them. I would be looking for, by November 15th, hey, I've done A, B, C, and D. These are the contacts I've made to try to get this done. I don't want to hold the McRoberts responsible for me dragging my feet on this issue. I've been obviously brought to task in regard to Mrs. Chrysler's statements that, hey, I'm not doing my job. This is just a tough one. My concern is there's different locales in rural Woodbury County where we have small business people who tend to be in one area. And if the McRoberts are guilty, there are probably a number of very close neighbors that may have a similar compliance issue to varying degrees, dependent upon the nature of their business. As I think you supervisors that have been on the board for some time, you know we've worked by policy off a complaint process. We do that on purpose. There's a big reason for that. It requires a formal written complaint before we will investigate any complaint unless there's a health or safety issue involved. We take complaints from citizens, competitors, use supervisors, road crews, you name it, they come in from all over. We do that, it takes the get even complaint out of the process. They go on record of who's complaining and why. We don't have the budget. We do not have an enforcement officer, so to speak. I am it in relation to the ordinances. And so by necessity almost, we have converted ourselves into a complaint-driven process.
Mrs. Chrysler followed the complaint process that is set out in writing.
She did file it, and we anticipate we'll be receiving other complaints from her in this neighborhood. She stated as much, but we have not received them as yet.
And then my last question, sorry, is as a citizen who may be in the McRoberts situation, what is recourse? Is it end with you or this board or the Board of Adjustment, Planning and Zoning?
If it's
What's the
determined,
appeal process look like?
There is an appeal process of any decision the zoning director makes. It's made to the Board of Adjustment and then to district court. If they don't, like for example, if they said, hey, you're making this definition you're interpreting or you're misinterpreting the ordinances, they could file a formal appeal there. There's a filing fee, an app. We haven't done one for 12 years, maybe longer as to my knowledge. They are welcome to do that, but I think this is pretty cut and dried in regard to it is technically a violation.
So as far as our board and our role in this, it's to make sure that you are acting in a way that is responsive to either party and fair.
Right.
But as far as the recourse of this board being able to weigh in on the decision, it would not be something that we could either party really weigh in on that would have any legal effect. Is that a correct
That's
statement?
true, but obviously you have the capability of directing your director and your zoning commission to come up with some ordinances that better fit this particular set of facts.
That was my question, Mr. Pailello. You mentioned it was virtually unenforceable. Would you or would you not recommend on this issue a change to the ordinance?
I've already began discussions with at least the chair of our Board of Adjustment today on, hey, maybe we need to fine-tune some stuff, and we certainly could add this to the list. The chair of your zoning commission's in the room. That discussion can take place with them also, but that has to come from a directive from your board to do a study and come up with some language change if you see it. Historically, we used to be even tougher on small businesses ran in rural Woodbury County. And back in 2005 to 2008, when it was seen that the newly adopted ordinances were too strict, we probably went the other way and loosened some things up. That being said, your board's faced with that difficult decision as well as I am, is, hey, do we support small business in rural Woodbury County under these home occupation rules? I don't think the process or the theory is a bad one. It just so happens we have probably one of several types of business that are just tough to fit because of the size of the vehicles. We have these businesses you don't even know about running out there in Morton buildings. You don't drive by, you don't even know they're there. Hundreds, probably. I wish I had an easy answer. I do not on this one. We've got good people who have tried to start a business and it's grown, and obviously under our ordinances the business has outgrown the parcel. Not a bad thing.
I did decrease that.
Well, you tell them what you've done.
Well, I mean, I had 7 trucks, I went down to 3. It just seemed to be fitting, but my part in this is we supply jobs for people. We help everybody. I mean, anybody that comes to our door, we give money to. My wife is, I have a hard time with this.
As a neighbor, can you speak?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Everybody, stand up. We're immediate neighbors. I'm
Name, address.
I live right directly across the street from him.
John.
John Goldsmith Jr.
Okay.
Don't get him confused. Please. I've lived there for 40 years, longer than anybody here has lived there. And I can tell you that as far as the facility goes, it's one of the nicest properties on our road. He keeps it clean, clean, clean. And by all means, there's not a fleet of trailers there. I see maybe 3 to 4 top there. I don't hardly ever see any truck traffic. And like Leroy says, they give to the community. We're all here. Everybody you see here, we are on top of him. The Crystal family, what makes no sense to me is they're 4 or 5 houses before we even come to them. So, they have to drive out of their way to even, I guess that's irrelevant, but they have to drive out of their way to even drive past their house. He is so particular that, I've asked him in the past. I had a old junk storage trailer that I wanted to keep on his property for 2 or 3 months. And as a friend even, he told me, no, I don't want it over there. They're particular people. They, like I said, they give to the community. We're all here to support him. And it makes no sense to me because I know for a fact that the Crystal family, for the past 20 years, they've been given complaints. They go on. And I know because my dad was one of them that they complained about. Probably had the right to complain about him. 2 different deals here, though. It's a first-class operation, and as far as trucks, I see maybe 1 truck parked in his property at a time. Usually they're all gone. It's just, if you could all go out there and look at it, I'm telling you, it's a nice facility, and I'll almost guarantee you, it's hard to get the whole street in here to a meeting, but I'll bet you if you gave them the opportunity with a tablet to go along that whole street of ours, you could get everybody there to sign a petition that says, hey, we're fine with this. There's 1 neighbor that's not going to be okay with it. But I guarantee you they could get every other neighbor to say, we're okay with this, absolutely. They're great people, so.
And you're all pretty much saying the same thing.
We
Well,
have small children that go back and forth across the property nonstop, and I don't worry ever about the trucks because they're mindful, they watch. I have
name,
Brenda Waugh, and I'm right next door. There's a couple acres between us, and I send my small children back and forth daily to play, and I never worry about the truck traffic. They are so mindful, so respectful. I never have to worry about it. They're amazing neighbors. I couldn't ask for better neighbors.
I don't think any of us are interested in putting McRoberts out of business. That's just not a good thing. The only thing I can suggest is that you work with John, and maybe John, you and the Board of Adjustments can come up with something to make this, I don't know what that is. Now, the problem is when you got a pile of junk somewhere else in the county, if we loosen it up, then they get away. Yeah. So, there's a balance in this.
We could explore, and I'm not sure if this will fly, but possibly some form of, if it fits, and I haven't even investigated this, maybe some type of conditional use, wherein you hold a public hearing, the neighborhood basically has gone on record, but obviously within a public hearing, it's a little different in regard to, hey, we're for it, we don't have objections, we support it, and then the Board of Adjustment receives probably a complaint or 2 they're going to get, and then puts in conditions to deal with those particular complaints. Off the top of my head, I don't even know if that's going to work, but I'd be willing to try to put something together. It's just a thought of, other than changing the ordinances, which could have ramifications more impactful than fixing one particular issue. I've been doing this 12 years. This is the first time we've really gotten this far with this issue. Trucking has always been a troublesome deal, dependent upon the type of tractor, whether it's a reefer deal and it's running during the summer all night and those kinds of things. We've been able to put most of them to bed, before they get to this point. All I can do is promise you that we'll work hard on it. I don't know the outcome.
What does that do in the meantime of your working hard on it as far as this particular process and why? I mean, is that something that is on hold until further review, or what,
Well, in most of our procedures within violation scenarios, let's say if this was a court scenario, let's say we went to court and cited them, we set a trial date, they pled not guilty to get there. We would wait until the trial court determined the outcome and let them continue with the violation until that point, unless there was health or safety involved. I don't think anybody's proved there is a health or safety issue here, except some of Mrs. Chrysler's comments have been safety related to trucks going up and down the road. To be fair to her and to be fair to the McRoberts, I believe, and this is only my opinion, that the issue we had on Lot 4, which is directly behind the McRoberts related to a borrow area and K&L construction, has tainted the neighborhood's opinion of anybody living in close proximity to that. What she has, I think, I don't know this, but it's possible that she is placing McRoberts vehicles and McRoberts drivers, thinking, and they were in fact in the past maybe K&Ls. I don't know. There's certainly two sides of this story, and I've heard both in a significant degree, and there's some misunderstanding on either one or both sides as to how this nuisance came about and its impact on the neighborhood.
Can you work with Board of Adjustment, see what we can get done?
I can do that. I would
And
like
it's
some
not-
directive, though, from you to put at bay the timeline that we've talked about and making sure they're compliant. Am I hearing you would like us to be flexible in that regard till the Board of Adjustments weighed in on this scenario?
I do.
I like your idea of incorporating a hearing. Thank you all for being here. It really speaks volumes. We sometimes wonder what the neighbors think, and we don't have to wonder in situations like this. So if we can get that as part of the evaluation process, because like you said, if we're looking at this based on complaints as they come, it helps to have the citizen input be part of the resolution process rather than just going step by step with the director. So this gives you more direction.
Does the board feel comfortable with giving me a date when you want this whole process completed? I mean, I don't want to say to the McRoberts, hey, you've got till December 31st that's a way too long a time frame in your minds. But obviously, if it goes to public hearing, there's publication, and we wouldn't get this. We would have a hard time getting this done and everybody notified even for the December 7th meeting. So it's probably going to go into January.
3 months?
I can work with that. McRoberts, do you feel comfortable with?
I can appreciate whatever you guys do. Our purpose is not to ever bother anybody.
We get it. But from our side of the window, it's the guy out there that's piling stuff up, okay, and that's what this was all about originally, I think. We don't want to take away the ability to fix that. On the other hand, we certainly don't want to shut down a business.
Obviously, before we start changing language within an ordinance, we look for a theme of problems along the same line. If you're giving away variances in the same scenario, change your ordinances. It's the same here.
Yeah.
If we had 20 of these trucking things coming down the pike and they were as involved as this is, maybe we need to write some language specific to the trucking industry
Yeah.
but I don't think we're not there yet. So we'll try to work this thing, conditional use or some other method. We'll report back to you in a week or so. And let you
Everybody
know what we decide.
comfortable with 3 months? Or do you want to go more or less, or?
I will be notifying the complainant of your decision here.
Very good.
Okay. Am I hearing
Got my
3
number.
months? Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Okay, need approval of the agenda for November 10th?
Move approval of the agenda dated November 10, 2015.
Need a second?
Second.
All those, discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Approval of minutes November 3rd.
Move approval of the minutes dated November 3rd and November 5th,
Oh, yep.
2015.
Supervisor Taylor, could you break those out since I was absent for the meeting on the 5th?
Sure. So I'll amend that to move only approval of the minutes dated November 3rd, 2015.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay.
Move approval of the minutes dated November 5th, 2015.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? Okay. Discussion and approval of claims. Need a motion.
Move approval of the claims.
Need a second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay. Community Action Agency.
Okay, as you know, we have a 21-member board, and of the 21 members, you guys appoint a third as your representatives. Normally, of the 7 individuals, we ask for somebody from the Board of Supervisors to serve in that capacity, and we have Mark on the board now. And the others are categories that we think that it would be important to hear from and have as your representatives. We now have Sally Hartley as an early childhood representative. We did that because Head Start requires us to have someone that has that expertise in early childhood. They also require us to have someone that has financial expertise. And we have Bob Knoller, who's a former treasurer. We have Dr. Dunker, who ran Western Iowa Tech. But we don't really have, you know, when the monitors come, I can't really point to a specific position and say, this is the position that is appointed as our financial watchdog, if you will. And I think it's probably appropriate that you do that. I would envision that we would ask someone from a bank, a CPA, maybe a CFO from an organization. I don't really have a position in mind. I would always be willing to take recommendations from you guys. You're the ones that appoint them. And that process is normally we go out and we find someone that would have that expertise if you think this is a good idea, and then they apply to you, and they're reviewed and appointed by you to be members of our board.
So you're going to have some people send us a letter saying they'd enjoy being on the board.
Yes, I mean, of course, if you think, and I wasn't really sure to change this. I think I've always had conversations with you if we change the categories. I don't know if that requires action on your part or just you giving me the nod that says, yep, let's go ahead and do that.
I don't think it does.
Okay. Is that
Just
okay with
board
you?
seats.
Oh, I guess I have a question. So are you removing any of these or just?
I would be removing the category of education.
Okay.
But because we added early education, we never really took the other one off. At that time, the position was held by Tom Cooper, the education seat, and so I do think that it would be good to take advantage of the vacancy that I
I
have
thought that's
now.
what I read. I was just in there trying to refine that.
Yeah,
Makes sense to me.
okay.
I have one more question on is there a position for supervisor? Because Mark is under, what, Northeast Rural?
Yes,
So
he's
is there a
under-
slot that says supervisor?
There isn't a specific slot that says supervisor. Actually, some of the positions are residential. If you look at my 3/3 of the board, which a third is appointed by our board, a third is appointed by the Board of Supervisors, and the last third are low-income representatives, we try to balance rural and urban positions in the same proportion as Woodbury County is, so that's 2/3 and a third. So it's not necessarily, if we would get a different supervisor from a different place, we would just juggle our positions around and have
I
someone
kind
else
of
fill
like the
that.
accountant aspect. Adds a lot.
I-
CPA.
I think that really was brought home to me. We had Shelley Sorensen, is vice president of Liberty National Bank. She had served on the board and out of a different category, not the ones who appoint. When she left the board, that really, I guess, brought it home to me that I think it really is mandatory, for us to be able to always point to that position and say.
And with an $8
we've
to
got
$10
that.
million budget, wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Would you want a motion to remove education and put in their financing? Is that,
If we need a motion, that would be what I would want to do. Remove the education category and replace it with financial, meaning someone with financial expertise.
I don't know that we need to do that. Is that a motion?
no, I was questioning whether we did have to do that.
I think
Josh,
you can
whether we
just
need
tell
to
me
do
that's
that?
what you want me to find.
It's on as an action item. You might as well. There's no harm if
Oh,
you.
okay.
Move or replace education with the
Finance.
financial wizard?
There you go.
Second.
Need a second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Thank you.
There we go. All right, Human Resources, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions. I'll pass that around. Need a motion?
Move it.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Authorize chairman to sign authorization to initiate hiring process.
Move it.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Approval of request to remain on county health insurance plan. And that is from Emergency Services. No? Siouxland District Health. Need a motion?
Move it.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, Board Administration, public bidder. Need approval to lift tax suspension for DH.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Approval of resolution, notice of property sale parcel 059190.
Move to set the public hearing on November 24th at 4:35.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay. Approval of resolution for notice of property sale 185250.
Move to set the public hearing for November 24th at 4:37 PM.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Conservation, Rick Snyder.
Afternoon, Rick
Good
Schneider,
afternoon.
Conservation Director. This agenda item is coming from the Conservation Board requesting Board of Supervisors approval of a memorandum of understanding agreement that we've worked on with the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. They will be assisting us in expanding our Curtin timber area by 120 acres. The reason we have this agreement is due to the timing of the acquisition. This may roll over from this fiscal year into another fiscal year, and our board can't obligate that. We have to have Board of Supervisors approval to do that. So in case that happens, we have this agreement in place. The property has come available, and the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation works on behalf of county conservation boards and other agencies in the state to purchase those things on our behalf and hold them until we receive grants. So we'll be applying for a grant this month and again in January. So this could be done this fiscal year, depending on the results of those grants. So that's the long and the short of it. I can give you more background if you wish, but it's basically Board of Supervisor approval is needed on this two-page memorandum.
The owner
Chair,
does
be
well,
authorized
right?
to sign.
Excuse me?
Owner does well, right?
Yes. Yeah, the owner wanted to see this become part of one of our area over there, the Curtin Timber area. It's some of the finest quality forest land in western Iowa that we've seen. It's an incredible piece of ground.
Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Thank you.
You're in business. Okay, Sioux Rivers Regional MHDS Service Delivery Personnel Contract Amendment. We received a personnel contract service delivery item that is at the discretion of this board. I find missing information. I'm not sure I understand why we are including some of these people in the region. I think we need more information. And I think we need to have a better look at a budget to be able to understand what all this means. Comments?
Well, maybe we could have Ed or Patty come up and give us some more information, because I'm sure you've been meeting to get to this point. Maybe you could just fill us in on the reasoning behind it. That would maybe, I mean, it seemed clear to me, but maybe there's something that's...
I would, personally, I would say it's probably better Patty's position to explain the addition to the change of the personnel. The change is pretty straightforward. There was a person who was 25% social services with the region and 75% with the county that would move to 100% as the proposal from Sioux Rivers region. And then there was a person who was secretary who was 60% with the region, 40% with the county. They proposed to move them to 100%. So.
Does this come to this board and then go to the region board, or has it been passed at the region, then it comes back here?
It wasn't, I don't believe it was technically passed at the region. I believe the direction was to send it to the county board, because these changes have to come from the county board. Then the governance board essentially receives it.
Will there be other counties that are doing the same thing as we are, or we're the only one? Okay.
Patty Erickson, Common Social Services. I apologize for my dress, but it's pretty appropriate for tomorrow, and I'm on a day of vacation, so you get me in blue jeans and a pullover. I believe the was listed as an action item on the governance board meeting that was held the end of October, and was asked to be passed, sent back to Woodbury County for its approval. But the governance board did vote on it at that time, and was sent then back to Woodbury County. The governance board supports it. What you have are two individuals here. The 60% individual does all the billing for the region and had previously done all the billing for case management. We know with the ending of case management, we're also losing another full-time reception position, which she will have to go in and accommodate those duties, as well as her billing services under the mental health and developmental disabilities, intellectual disability services. So that 40% is being replaced by receptionist duties and working. The other position was 25% was with the region, and 75% was with case management. Again, the end of the case management program, and we had quite a discussion on this up at the regional governance board meeting, in that when this transition takes place, we are very concerned that individuals are going to be denied, have services declined. So this position becomes crucial in reviewing every funding decision that the MCOs are making, and to assure that there isn't any major cost shifting going from the Title 19 program onto the regions. So when you serve, I think our office alone served right at 1,500 people for the previous fiscal year. Sioux County serves 98, and Plymouth County serves right in that same vicinity. So you have a phenomenal number of people that you're only going to have one full-time social worker then reviewing all of those assessments, evaluations, and recommendations for services.
Will that, Patty, will that go though from 1,500 down now that there's no longer, the case management is being shifted? Wouldn't that number be different in future fiscal years rather than past fiscal years, or no?
No.
Okay.
No. Our concern is, Mr. Taylor, that when these MCOs, they are going to be in charge of assessing, evaluating, and authorizing services. If you get the cost shift going on where they're saying, well, individual needs X, Y, and Z services, but we're only going to pay for X. So region, you're going to have to pay 100% Y and Z. This position would hold those MCOs accountable, not only to pay for what they're required to pay for, but to also seek and find other funding sources so that the path of least resistance, the region isn't seen as a path of least resistance and, oh, we'll just shove it on them. We just won't pay for it. Find some other way to pay for it. And oh, by the way, you can go to the region. The social worker is quite versed in a variety of funding streams that could be capitalized and may have to be brought into play. But all of those people are still going to require services. Their disabilities don't disappear just because we have MCOs providing the services.
The flaw in that argument is, however, the MCOs are going to get the money that we were getting to do case management.
Yes.
Then they should do their job, and we shouldn't be cleaning up after them.
It's not cleaning up after them. It's making sure that our people are served and served in the most appropriate,
The
best way.
MCOs should be providing that service.
I agree with what you're saying, Mark, except that's how they make their money. This, right now, it's the fox guarding the hen house with those 4 groups.
And we don't even know how they function.
No, but we have to be able to serve the client. The only one being hurt in this whole thing is the clients. And
We don't know that yet.
We've seen it already occur.
well, I think we do, but that's, up for debate. I think if we go ahead and approve this and transfer this to the region, then it's the region that's going to be overseeing these people. They will be their employees, and we have 1/3 of the votes on the region. So if there's all of a sudden becomes not a need for these people, then the cutting should come from the region, not this board. Well, it would be coming from the region because they're their employees.
It specifically says we make the recommendation.
We make the recommendation to the region.
Yeah.
It's up to the region to decide, determine whether these people
No.
staying employed.
Well, Section 5.1 of the 28 agreement includes the obligation of the member county to provide county staff as agreed and only as needed between the member county and the governing board for the effective provision of contracted services. And that's by nature, a gray area. We did have quite a discussion at the governance board meeting. I'm not sure that enough information was presented for me personally to justify increased job responsibilities for a couple individuals, and that did not just come from Woodbury County. There was other supervisors. I remember one from Plymouth County that was questioning the wisdom of basically subsidizing the state operation, as Chairman Munson mentioned. It's a sad reality, but I don't know if we're in the position where we're either going to make it not as bad as it probably should be because of the state planning, or we're going to subsidize it. And that could be we could go down a path. It was discussed at the meeting where we might be looking at one service coordinator to pick up the pieces this year, but next year the comment was made from the governance board, we could be looking at 5. and those would be, hired by Woodbury County conceivably. But that's a discussion that has to come between, originate from the county level.
So it's in flux. No one, to me, that says we're not sure what the staffing
Exactly.
levels are going to be. But it could be much higher than what this is, than moving the couple people over. Is that what I heard you say?
It could be in the future. That was.
Well, I always go back because it's confusing. It always is. I always go back to wanting to provide the best service. And I always have to go back to trusting the service providers to make the recommendations to me, so I can help you help them. So what's the fallout if this is not approved at this board, that possibly we won't provide as good a service? Is
You'll
that...
have 2 more individuals looking for work. But there was a great amount of discussion at the governance board meeting. I wasn't prepared to respond
And I'm
to
sorry
this
to bring
tonight.
it up, but I guess
And that's fine, because I'm concerned. But there was a great amount of discussion. There was a vote taken, and that vote supported assuming these positions.
The vote that was taken last meeting was to send this to this board.
You'd have to check the minutes, because I believe the minutes say,
Is that what you got?
I believe the minutes say that the governance board approved it.
This is not their approval. It says on the last page, Woodbury County.
With the governance board.
Well, the other thing I have trouble with is an office manager. I've been trying to get a budget that separates one-time money from ongoing funding. We're creating more ongoing funding. I'm concerned about what's going on in our jail. I'm concerned about the homeless folks that are on the streets, a lot of mental illness. We just aren't getting there, and I think it needs to be addressed. I want to see a budget before I get this done. I want to see where this money is coming from, not just one big pile of money, $7 million. I want to see what's ongoing and what's one time, because I haven't seen it.
Is that possible?
Yes.
Has to
And
be.
it has been prepared and presented once, and that was at the same meeting that we discussed the varying tax levies. And so those have been broken out. It's identified as regional money versus Plymouth versus Sioux versus Woodbury County line item expenditures. And the region now currently provides over $250,000 in mental health services to the Woodbury County Jail. And yes, we are willing to continue to look at that on additional types of programs and services. The Crisis Center is going to be a part of that program, which is
I don't
going
believe
to
the
be a new-
crisis center is going to make any difference in the jail, Sheriff. Is that crisis center going to make a difference in the number in jail?
Well, it's all a part of the process. I think it was 9 people.
We'd be able to accommodate 15.
15. The main thing is that we get them to get off the beds, however we get that done.
Yes.
Anyway, I want to see when that budget was presented, I asked to have it separated out, and that's been quite a while ago. I've seen a little list of some things, but it doesn't match up with the budget, so I don't know what the budget looks like. I don't know what line it comes out of. I want to see a Dennis Butler budget that says this is it.
And I thought,
You're the financial agent, aren't you, of the...
You got to separate it out for him so he can do it.
it's separated.
From what I understand, they've met this money, get to it. This next money, they're supposed to get the budget that we're hoping for. And then as soon as they get it, they're supposed to relay it to me. So I can get to our 2 representatives and maybe the rest of the board too, to see it. But the request was made. I think they're working on it, but until we see it, we don't know.
hopefully we'll get it next, Monday morning, they're gonna be working on it.
When is the next region meeting?
November 24th is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
24th.
I just feel like if Woodbury County can, and I'm not sure, can we trump? I mean, can we override the region recommendation and, let people go, even if it is in disagreement with the region? And if that's the case, I would like to be able to go to that region meeting, because it's very difficult to sit here and know exactly what the pulse of the region is, what's being said. And I think this is very important decision-making. We're messing with people's lives, both service and employees, and I just want to make the best decision I can all the way around. So how do I get to go to that region meeting? That's my question for.
It's always posted, Pat. Oh, okay.
Who posted the,
You would have to post it as a meeting of the Board of Supervisors.
well, I guess I would like to make that request to our chairman that it would be posted. I would just like to go and just hear the discussion, because I'm assuming that would come back to us after that. Is that what you're waiting for?
We can go several ways with this. We could, I'm not sure of the legal side of if we can amend and send something back that's already been sent one way, but this doesn't have to necessarily originate at the region level. It could originate here and then pass at the region level. That's the discussion we had before the vote to send it to Woodbury County was, does this start here or there? And it was simply the pleasure of that board to start it there.
But ultimately, just so I make sure I'm making sense of this, ultimately, there seems to be a disagreement, and the disagreement seems centered on this, whether or not the Sioux Rivers region or Woodbury County makes that ultimate decision as far as this specific funding or the staff level. Is that, simply put, is that the question? I mean, Supervisor.
Repeat that?
Yeah, Supervisor Smith brought up that Sioux Rivers, can we trump what Sioux Rivers is talking about as far as these particular positions? But it seems that Chairman Munson was mentioning that it's at the discretion of this particular board whether or not those positions, and Supervisor Ung echoed that same thing. So there seems like that's a question.
Well, we echo the 28E, so I don't think there's any disagreement if you're looking at that text, that it does, only as needed is a responsibility or obligation of the member counties. In this case, Woodbury County simply supplies the employees.
So ultimately, that decision then does rest with this board. Is that correct, Joshua?
Well, and
Just the opposite.
the reason that this agreement is on the agenda here today is because the 2080 specifies that the job descriptions, the contract is between the region and the county, and like any contract, you have to have mutual agreement and assent on both sides. So there can be discussions between the county and the region as far as, what the contract should specify. My understanding is that the only difference in the contract is the percentage levels for two of the positions that are listed on the contract. So it boils down to what the appropriate staffing level is. The fact that the region has sent it here, I don't think that there's a disagreement that it has to be approved by both the region and the county.
This is a staffing level for Woodbury County, not the whole region.
No, it would be for the whole region. We're saying that those positions are needed and necessary because right now, the 40% uptake, the individual that was doing 60% was doing all of the billing for Sioux Rivers region, all the billing, preparing all the claims and working directly with the CEO and Denny on submission and payment of claims. Her 40% increase is to continue to then provide services to those case management, and I can't use the word case management, continue to be the receptionist and taking of information and directing information at the desk there. She'll be brought back out and do receptionist duties along with financial duties. The 25% person, she is now going to have to serve all of the people in the 3 counties to provide those services, to make sure that all services are being received that these individuals need and the funding sources for them. Otherwise, you're going to have 2 people that...
See, I don't buy that yet. I don't think we know that.
I think that was our recommendation to the governance board, and that's what the governance board
I don't
agreed
know
with.
that that's true. It might be, but I don't know that.
And how would you know that?
Well, you let the MCOs get up and running.
The CEO is doing his job, and the 3 service coordinators are doing theirs.
You
This
said
is
the
going to require...
MCOs.
They're the ones that are taking
I'm
this all
sorry,
over.
did you say MCO? I'm sorry, Mark, I misunderstood.
They're the ones that
I
are
thought you
taking
said
it all
CEO.
over.
They're taking over, you're right, and that's part of the problem. That's why this becomes so critical, is that now they are providing the assessment, evaluation, and authorization for services to these individuals. And anybody they don't want to serve, they're going to send to the region and say, it's the region's responsibility to pay for 100% of these services. Okay, somebody needs to be
Well,
handling
I'm not
the
sure I buy into that
MCOs.
either.
Why wouldn't you?
Why would, they don't have the right to send it to the region.
Yes, well, okay, they have the right to refuse to pay services. And then where's that individual going to go? They're going to be left without services. They're going to be looking for somebody to find
See,
how
but I
to
don't
get
know,
how they
I don't
need.
know that. We don't know that yet because it's not in place.
You know that case management has gone away. That's what case management used to do for these people. Now it's being done by these MCOs. So there is going to be big concern. We've had numerous phone calls, numerous parents and individuals already calling the offices saying, where do we go? What do we do? How do we get through this? They don't know where they're going to go.
Those are usually the things that
Pardon me?
cause things
So
to
you're
get
going to allow
fixed.
our disabled people not to receive services, and you're going to
No, I
wait
can't see
until
it.
you have
can't say that.
accumulation.
You can't
But
say
Mark,
that yet.
But Mark, how can you not say that?
How
You're gonna
can you
wait-
say it?
you're
It's
gonna
not in
wait-
place.
You're going to wait to see our people be harmed
Oh.
before you respond.
No, I can't go there.
I can't go there and not think that they're not going to be jeopardized in the services that they receive.
I would,
History has said it and done it and proved it time after time.
I would suggest that Matthew and I sit down with Shane and have a discussion over this. And I want to see a budget that I can understand and outlines where all of this comes from and how it gets separated out and where the one-time money is.
And we go again to that's a regional budget. It's no longer a county budget.
Well, the thing is, we're only talking,
So we don't get to see it
Sure, you're going to see it.
after the fact.
You've seen it.
I have not seen it.
I think, Mark,
haven't
you
seen
have.
it.
Yes, you have. You've seen
You
4
could not
columns.
see
You've
it.
seen regional, which identifies not ongoing costs, identifies one-time costs. You've seen the 3 counties. You've seen the breakdown of whether it's residential services.
It needs to be better defined.
We felt it was, and we left that meeting up there last week feeling that all those questions had been answered, as well as the levy rate being settled, as Mr. Rohn brought up in his editorial.
I think the confusion here from our board is that when we did set that recommendation, and I want to be clear, the governance board did recommend a budget for the 3 counties, I believe 2 meetings ago. In my mind, by saying that we were going to assume half of the tax decrease in year 1 and half in year 2, we settle on a concrete figure that was dependent upon Dennis's numbers. He emailed out to the governance board. So the $633,080 was in fact recommended by the region. That's reflected in the minutes because it says half of this particular number, which is a real number. At the last governance board meeting, I raised the question of whether this, I guess, dynamic here was already in the budget, and they said it was before we approved it.
Yes.
And the response I got from the governance board was that we are getting the budget ready and it's going to incorporate this for the next meeting. So I thought we already made a recommendation. Now it's fine if we want to amend our recommendation, make another one to override it. But the fact is, Mark and I are unsure of where that is. Dennis is still working on getting those numbers from the region. I understand they had a meeting, but it wasn't about the finances today. And so we are waiting to know if what's in our minutes is true, if we already recommended a budget, or if the budget is forthcoming, the budget recommendation is forthcoming from the region. So there is obviously some confusion of when and how the recommendation is sent to the county.
The recommendation, Mr. Ung, because I thought that the discussion up there was about what the dollar amounts were, what the services were, what the total budget dollar was. We were asked, did you include these positions in that? We said yes. And then the vote was later taken on whether or not the governance board supported increasing these positions to 100% on both of the individuals involved.
That's not what I heard. I heard it was to send it to this board.
We asked for a vote from the governance board to support the increasing to 100%, and then it was also sent back to the Woodbury County Board for their approval. But it was approved by the Regional Governance Board at 100% for those two individuals.
How much money are we exactly talking about?
You're talking roughly $100,000.
How much?
$100,000. And that amount was discussed up there last week also.
No, I don't think you're right on that amount of money. It's 75% of 60, so that's 3/4, that's 50, that's 45. And 20, about 65,000.
Yeah.
We kind of ran through the number. I think it may be a little closer to 100.
Benefits.
That's because it includes benefits and IFRS and all those kinds of things too. So it gets really close to 100,000.
Yeah, when you put the benefits back.
For a full fiscal year.
I move that we approve this.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Is there discussion?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry, well, I know we've had quite a bit, but I'm not going to vote to approve it, and I just want to state why. I feel like I don't have enough information, and I feel like it's about as clear as mud. And so...
And I wish I could have been prepared.
No,
for this
and
evening,
there's...
And I had no clue that this was going to be assigned to me or asked for or anything other than a simple...
No, and that's not any aspersion or judgment on what, it's only as a supervisor who's not privy to those meetings, it's not clear right now what we're talking about from a budgetary standpoint in total. It's not, there's disagreement on, you know, you mentioned if they approved it and then sent it for the approval of this board. I just have too many questions at this time, so that's why I'm not going to vote in favor of it, not anything on the preparation.
I would welcome any one of the supervisors to come down to the office and go through the tapes and go through the minutes and discuss things with Shane Walter or Denny Wright who's the chairman of the governance board. I know they'll be more than happy to sit down and go through the process and the procedures that has been followed.
Mr. Gill.
I have a question on
yeah,
discussion.
Go ahead.
Maybe I'm not supposed to do this, but would you be more comfortable if you saw the budget and then you'd be able to vote for it like in, say, a week? Is that what you're meaning?
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable if I saw, as Mark was alluding to, the budget that he was supposedly shown and that didn't make sense to him as far as the breakdown of it. I mean, I feel like we're getting all sort of getting secondhand information, and there's a disagreement on whether or not it's at the behest of this board to approve. I mean, you mentioned earlier, can we trump the region? Well, it sounds like you need both approval of the region and approval of this board in order to make that decision. And I also have some consternation with, I guess here's one philosophical thing. It sounds like if the MCOs do their job, that these, this extra service delivery would not be necessary. Now, whether or not they'll fall down on the job and not do it, I don't know that. And so right now, I'm not comfortable voting for this.
We can't do it next week. Holiday tomorrow. Thursday and Friday are packed. We'll get it on the agenda. I want to meet with Shane Walters. I'm not even sure that's possible in the next 3 days, 4 days, 2 days, whatever it is. Okay, anyone else? Roll call.
Clausen.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Taylor.
Nay.
Hum.
Nay.
Nay.
I will be happy to provide any information when asked to do so.
Okay.
And I will do that and come bring it back before the board. Thank you.
I do have a question on procedure. Okay, so this was voted down. How does it come back then? One of the prevailing members who voted against it would then bring it back?
Yes. Okay.
Mr.
County-
Chairman, I don't think it matters who brings it back.
I don't either, but we can. County Treasurer Mike Clayton approve resolution for a tax abatement for JR and SY. Need a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Resolution for tax abatement for JS. Need a motion?
Move it.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Building services.
Kenny Schmidt's Building Services. Building Services of the Baker Group received bids for the LED lighting material installations. We received bids from 5 separate contractors: Lewis Electric, Odell Electric, Nystrom Electric, Metro Electric, and Thompson Electric. Each of those bidders sent in bids for separate buildings and alternates for each building within each of the bid packs. I'm going to let Shane with the Baker Group go over some numbers. In the last meeting, you asked for some rebate numbers and some dollar figures, and Shane has those.
So I was asked, where we're sitting at right now on rebates. I'm sorry I didn't get this finished until just a little while ago, so I'm telling you the numbers. 361, 384 is what we're looking at for rebates right now. That rebate percentage is running 57%. When we did it before, we were at about 54%. So we're about equal to where we were before. We're just doing a little bit better on the rebates. As we told you last week when we came before you, we had some good bids. Our numbers are down from where we thought, so the whole project is down from our original estimate. So I mean,
What was the original estimate about? I mean, you don't have to have the exact nets.
Round numbers.
the original estimate was $956,514.64.
But you don't have to be real
I don't have to be
specific.
exact.
How many cents? Okay, and so 956,000 roughly, and now what is it down to through the bid process?
The overall project should be 767, 918, including all fees for architect, the engineer, and the Baker Group.
About 768 roughly.
Your material and labor costs are going to be about 650.
So what's that total?
The total project cost, is that what you're correct? That was the 767, 918.
That include material?
Material, labor, engineering, and
Wow, we were talking $1.5 million when we started this.
that's correct.
That's everything. That's labor, the whole
That's the whole
installation.
enchilada. That does not have the contingency fund built in. Sorry, but you can't ask that question from back there.
Whole enchilada except
The contingency fund.
contingency.
And the contingency fund adds how much?
The contingency fund, the recommendation from Kenny was $70,100. Now, just so we understand, the contingency fund is money that's not spent unless it's actually needed. It has to be an approved change order. The only big topic that the contingency fund was to look at was right now is to replace the historic globes in the courthouse. Some of them are cracked and deteriorating. Because of the time frame of how long that would take, that was recommended to be not part of the quicker part, because we need to find somebody that can make them to keep the historical look of that. It has to be brought up through Steve King and everybody to get approval of the new globe and what it's going to look like. So,
Another reason we were asking for that contingency up front is if we do run into problems, we can make a decision at that time without having to come back to the board and then having a contractor wait on a response.
We've got some, there's no way to quantify this, but there's some old wiring in some of your fixtures that when you go to change some of the bulbs, we found out may cause some rewiring of some fixtures.
So if I'm...
What do they call that, knob and wire?
Knob and tube?
Knob and tube.
So we're looking roughly, and again, we're just using rough numbers, sorry, at about $407,000 after rebates.
Yeah, we're sitting right now between 385 and 407 is looking like the out-of-pocket expense from the county.
After rebate.
After rebate.
Boy, that's a different story than we started with. Wow.
Yes, sir. We got some really good numbers for materials. We saw from the contractors I talked to, they bid this very aggressive because it was winter work where they could be inside, which was our whole goal to bring it to you so quickly, was to try to give them a chance to do this over the winter when they're not as busy, so you get better numbers. And to beat the rebates changing after the first of the year.
So recommendation?
Our recommendation is to move forward and approve contracts with the listed contractors in your tabulation of bids. Those approvals would be Odell Electric, Nystrom Electric, Metro Electric, and Thompson Electric. And the financial impact would be $176,115 plus the contingency fund. We're recommending the different contractors. We believe it gives us a good uniformity to spread out throughout the buildings, which will allow us to get the project done at a quicker pace. It also spreads out the funds, we believe, within the community on a fairly good average, so allows everyone or almost everyone within the community to receive some of those dollars that the county is spending.
Are they all good with this?
Yes, I have called every one of them to kind of break out what they would have for buildings. There was also an error in one of the things that had looked low before was missing a piece, so we talked to them and talked to Joshua about how that all played out. So that's all been fixed. Everybody knows where we're sitting at. Just for everybody's knowledge, right now Nystrom would have 4-year buildings. Nystrom would have 5-year buildings. Thompson would have 4-year buildings. Metro 2 and Odell 2. So it's a pretty good split. By adding up the sums of all their buildings, it was only $1,354 different than Nystrom's overall bid. But because it was low, that's what we chose to take, spread it up amongst everybody.
Can I give you any sort of indication of timeline, or is that hard to?
It's kind of hard to do this, but the good news is everybody's wanting to do this for winter stuff. So I'm guessing we should hopefully see this done by around April 1st, and stuff, because we've got 4 people that are going to try to get out, barring any troubles getting through the jail or the the courthouse. But yes, those are our big, if that makes sense.
Need a motion?
Can we move to approve all these at once?
Sorry, go ahead.
Can we move to approve all of these at once, or do we have to do it separately?
It could be a single motion.
Move to approve the bids from Odell Electric, Nystrom Electric, Metro Electric, and Thompson Electric.
How about Metro?
said that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right, need a second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
And in regards to the contingency, was there a different, separate contingencies that were built into the installation bids, or is this one overall contingency?
So this is an overall contingency that's managed just by us outside, not built into anybody's bid. There is a $5,000 allowance that was built in there for fixture V1. That's the only money that was built into anything.
Into the installation bids?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's why you had the question that you had. On Siouxland District Health, there was a fixture that we were unable to identify the replacement for before the bids went out. So we put an allowance in there for that fixture. So the contractor included $5,000 to cover the installation of that fixture when it was picked.
Okay, so there probably should be a separate motion in relation to the overall contingency. It's really kind of separate from specific to these bids.
And what was the total amount of that contingency? Not the 5,000, but the separate contingency that Mr. Wood-
$70,100 that Kenny has listed on your packet.
Yeah, and that was based on the total package.
That's based on the total everything. I mean, yes.
So we need a motion on contingency?
Correct.
Need a motion?
Move to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
How much was that?
$70,100.
Let's get them in.
Yes, sir.
Kenny?
I'm up again. Woodbury County received bids for trash garbage removal in conjunction with the city of Sioux City. It's been quite a lengthy process. I received all the bids, or Dennis and I did, reviewed all the bids, went through and tried to review all of the, or not tried, but did review all of the county contracts on our garbage removal and pricing. I don't have a reduction number for you. It is very slight. The one thing that is good in the overall process is now we have a handle and a foresight on what all of our contracts are, what contracts there are, which contracts we're bound by, and I've listed some of those. I've listed a list of 4 or 5 recommendations for you. I'm asking for authority to provide notification to terminate services effective December 31st, 2015 for the Correctionville Shed currently serviced by Sanitary Services. I'm asking for authority to provide notification to terminate services December 31st, 2015 for the Lawton Shed currently serviced by CHN. I'm asking for authority to provide notification to terminate services effective December 31st, 2015 for Siouxland District Health, currently serviced by Gil Hauling. And I'm asking for approvals for new contracts and immediate notification thereof effective January 1st, 2016 with CHN Garbage Services for Correctionville Shed, Danbury Shed, Mobile Sheds, and there's 2 of those, and Climbing Hill Emergency Services. Independent Waste for the Law Enforcement Center, Trosper Hoyt, and Siouxland District Health. Western Disposal for Lawton Shed. And the final, I really don't need an approval on it. We are bound by current contracts with Waste Management for the Luton Shed, Hornick Shed, and Prairie Hills. There is a typo in item number 6. That should say January 1st, 2016, not 2015 in the first sentence there on item 6 approvals. And there is also a typo on the Western Disposal contract. The effective date on the top page there should say January 1st, 2016. not December 1st, 2015. And with the board's approval, we'll make those changes and move forward with our new contracts.
Can we do these in total, Joshua?
On the western, you have service address southwest corner of Highway 20. Isn't that the southeast corner? The lot and shed?
Lot and shed will be southwest.
Southwest, okay.
Highway 20 and Emmett.
Okay.
Now, Kenny, you said there's minimal savings here, but what you're doing is getting all the contracts lined up.
That's correct. There wasn't a huge savings in the whole contract bidding process. There was some slight savings, but yes, what this did for us is give us a good outline on what contracts there were, what their expirations dates are, and now going forward with new contracts, we'll make all those contracts expire or term at the same dates. That way the process going forward will be much easier.
Were there any changes for haulers or not?
There are changes for a couple different haulers.
No, I'm just inquiring. I don't need to know the names. Could you make the print a little smaller?
Well, I might be able to provide some magnifying glasses next time, Larry.
Didn't you say your next life career would be negotiating with garbage haulers?
I think so, yes. I've learned a lot in the negotiations with them. So this page I showed you outlines a current spreadsheet that I was keeping track of our contracts and so forth. The changes are the ones that you see in red. You'll see I'm asking for the termination notices that are put on your agenda item. And other than the black ones with waste management, those are the contracts we are locked into, and they auto-renew for 3 years. And so we've got to keep an eye on those contracts. And when those are due, we need to give prior notice in writing and make sure that we take care of those contracts because they are very high. The areas you see and all the different contractors or vendors have a different color there. The area you see in gray are the contracts that fall underneath the Conservation Board.
So it sounds like we need a motion to terminate the previous contracts, and so I would move to do so as listed in the agenda.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
And a separate motion to approve the contracts going forward in total as amended by the comments of our building superintendent.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay.
Courthouse elevators. As the board knows, we received bids on the elevator modernization. And the board instructed myself and RML to go back to the prospective bidders. We had several that did not bid the project, and to question as to why those that did not place a bid didn't do so. Basically, two of those firms told me that the timing just wasn't right for their company. Otherwise, they would have put in a bid. One of the firms just did not return multiple calls and voicemails to me. And so I really don't know what their problem or issue might have been if there was one. We do have some options from Shoemaker, our one bidder. And Mike with RML, if you'd like to step up and we can go over some of those options. So they gave us some several numbers. Removal of Division 9, which is resilient floor tiling in the elevators. That was a deduct, if we wanted to remove it, of $4,288. Second item is removal of Division 23, equipment room HVAC, and replace with HVAC controlled cabinets. The deduct for that would be $41,449. Just to explain to you a little bit more about what that is basically air conditioning the control room of the elevator equipment. That figure is so staggering because of the rooftop unit that was originally planned to cool that room. I'm not sure why that wasn't designed a little differently, but that's why we asked to not air condition the room and then just.
I think part of it is getting that unit up there on the roof to be able to do that. And one of the things that we initially discussed with the project is there's two ways to do this. Either you can cool just the controls or can cool the whole room. And we chose to cool the whole room with the county staff and the engineers, and that was resulted in the $41,449. So now this $41,449 credit includes removing the old air conditioning and air conditioning just the controls. So the room will be up there, will be warm, in the summer if someone has to go up and work on it, but the controls will be cooled, and that's all that needs to be done.
Does it have to be heated?
I think the equipment itself would warm the room.
Yeah, the equipment itself will warm the room.
Oh. Okay, so your recommendation is?
Well, we're going to move on to the third item. Another deduct was reuse the existing elevator doors. That was a deduct of $18,690. And then item 4 was removal of taxes. That would be $13,076.
Yeah, in the bid documents, it said not to include taxes and that the county would issue a certificate, but they included taxes in their bid.
So I listed this as informational, and so I guess if I was to make a recommendation, it would be that we would accept deducts for items 1, 2, and 4. But item 3, I believe that the doors should be replaced, and I don't think we should accept that as an option. I see that causing problems in the future for us if we were to do that.
Well, I was going to ask, do they replace the mechanism on the door?
Yeah, what they have to do is they have to retrofit the door to work with the new equipment, all the stuff that they put in there. So there's 9 floors with two sets of doors on each floor. For the cost you're getting those new doors, I think it would be well worth putting in now and escaping the trouble down the road.
These are just the interior elevator doors, they're not the exterior.
I believe so, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, we'd have to know that for sure.
Yeah, pardon me?
Replace the doors on the floor.
Yeah, the doors for the ones on the floors, yes.
The exterior door?
Yeah, the one that's painted black. Up there, I think.
Dark blue.
What's that?
They're blue.
Blue, yeah. They're black on the lower level, blue on the other levels, I think.
I don't know that we can replace those.
We sent this down to the state historical architects for their approval, and in the plans and specs, we were replacing those exterior doors. The elevators weren't, I don't believe were original to the very original building, those doors.
I imagine you had to walk back then.
Right.
They did approve the change.
And, yeah, so.
So you're going to bring this back then with those recommendations for approval next week? Is that-
Yeah, I'd like to bring it back to the board for possible approval next week, and also like to maybe have some discussion with Dennis if we want to do this at one time during 1 year, or try to spread it across 2 years, or maybe get the board's ideas on what your feelings are on that as well.
Dennis just told me he put it in 2 years, working from the CIP standpoint, so I don't know.
And that's still a part of the board here.
Yeah.
The way those elevators operating, I'd get it done quick.
Yeah. Yep, those doors, one of them drags.
And so, yes, I would like to come back next week with a recommendation.
I'm ready.
Personally, I'm against taking out those doors. I only one of 5 here, but
I think they need to be replaced. They're not original, did you say?
Well, they're probably the original doors when they put the elevators in, but I don't believe the elevators were original to the building when it was first built.
We would be kind of chancing it if the specific mechanisms to activate the old doors don't gel with the old equipment, wouldn't we?
Yeah, they have to retrofit the old doors to work with the new equipment if we don't replace them.
Therein lies
That's
the problem.
reflected in.
but that's in the bid.
That's in the, actually what's in the bid is new doors. That if you take the $18,000 deduct, that is retrofitting the old doors and giving you a credit for not putting the new doors in. The new doors are in the bid.
Do we know what the new doors look like?
I believe they look just like the old doors. I can get a
Can you?
sample
Picture?
from them. That's what we said, that they had to look exactly the same in specs, so. And all they are is, they were gonna get them painted in the shop, I believe, to match the color of the doors that are on there now. So they're just.
Well, if there's no difference in look, but I have, I guess Supervisor Ung's same concern that I want them mechanically to be new instead of taking the deduct up front if there's gonna be a mechanical. Any sort of chance of that, we might as well.
That's a problem I've run into in the past. I've worked on another elevator project, didn't replace the doors, and it came back and bit me. I continually had problems with the doors, and the installer, when I kept going back for warranty, the installer said, "You didn't replace your doors, so we're not going to warranty our problem with the controls interworking with your current doors. It's your problem."
Well, I'm in agreement with changing the doors.
And in answer to Larry's question, in the specifications, it says to paint them to match the existing doors.
Yeah, if you can get a picture of that, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get some.
Might be able to solve my problem there, but I just.
They were, in the spec, it says to paint them to match existing.
And we did show this to the folks from the State Historic Society.
Yes.
So
They
they're
approved it.
aware of the idea of changing the doors, and they were in favor of it.
And you showed them what was going to replace it with?
It's in the
They were
spec,
fine
yeah.
with replacing it. I mean, they didn't even question it, really.
It wasn't like it was a picture that they saw, Larry, but they did see the specification, so they could have looked it up.
Yeah. And they approved the plans and the specs as is. They have a couple of just very slight changes, which were really nothing.
Which is amazing.
But basically with your recommendations, I would knock it down approximately 50,000 from that number.
It would take it from that 443 down to.
Or more.
384.
Yeah.
384, 748.
And I'm not sure I did.
That is the number after your recommendations. This number is the number after your. You accept
Yes,
1, 2,
yeah,
and 4.
that would be the final number,
Okay.
yes. I also think we're going to see some, and I would have to talk to the vendor about this shoemaker, but I think we can realize some savings on our current maintenance costs and contracts that we have on the current elevators. I see that there's obviously going to be a couple of months while the elevators are being worked on, and obviously, in my mind, I don't think they can charge us a fee or a service during that period of time, and so I think we could see a reduction there, or we might ask for a reduction there. And also I'll also ask them in the future, I'll be looking for another contract after our new warranty expires on the project.
Yeah, because you would think that the level of service wouldn't be as great with
You would
brand
hope.
new
Yeah, correct.
as with old,
Correct.
right?
It's like when you buy a new car.
Right.
You don't pay much for service.
Thank you for, yeah, thank you.
Okay, very good. Next item.
Courthouse facade. We experienced a problem in courtroom 201. And we actually had a piece of marble come down, and so we got to take a look and see why that happened. And we noticed, we found that the windows in the center of that courtroom were had moved about 1.25 inches or so. And out, yes, outward. And so we're very concerned, of course, on why those windows might have moved. I've contacted and looked at the area with 2 architects, Ed Storm with FEH and Scottney Fenton with RDG, and gotten both of their opinions. Their opinions slightly differ, but they're along the same line. One of them believes either the window casing themselves have deteriorated, or the fasteners that are holding those window casings in place have started to deteriorate, and that's why the windows are moving. In looking at that, we also checked the other areas in the other courtrooms, and we found that there are 2 more that, while not nearly as bad, there's also movement in 2 of the other courtrooms.
I see you got some jacks in 203.
We do. We've got some jacks. We don't want any more marble to have the possibility of falling out and breaking. And so we jacked those up a little bit. We've also rented a high lift, and we took a look at those windows from the exterior side of the building to see what we could see. There's not much we could really tell without removing the windows. We really can't see what the issue is, other than they've moved quite a bit. So I asked Scottney Fenton with RDGG if he would give me a recommendation on what he thought we should do. I sent him an email and I didn't get a response back, so I took that as apparently he does not want to respond in writing, so I gave him a call. And it appeared that I'd probably been correct, and I said, well, what would you do if you were in my position? And he said I would get up there and get that caulked as quickly as I could and get some repairs made. I said, you understand we're going into winter, and it would be pretty difficult to do a repair this time of year, and it would be also more difficult to get a contractor and get through bidding processes and so forth. By the time we went through all that, we'd be, I believe, into late December. He understood and recommended that we get up there and caulk those windows as best we could, and then next spring get after them with a contractor or whatever needed and pull those casings out and find out what the problem was and correct it. I've set this agenda item up just for information only now. While we did have the high lift here, we did do the caulking of the windows, secured them as best we thought we could. And so this winter we will probably try to move forward with getting bids on removing those windows and trying to find out what the problem actually is. It's going to be a scenario where we're not really going to know a cost figure because we don't really know what the problem is, and the contractors are not going to know what the problem is until they remove the window casings themselves. You can't see what the problem is, not until they're removed. And
well, I went up there and looked where the marble used to be, and you could see daylight, and Mike told me there was a pigeon living in there.
there was. Hopefully we've got him out of there and we've sealed that gap up now.
That was our mascot.
Yeah.
We're hoping we don't get a lot more movement. Both architects seem to agree that they believe that, you know, it's a deterioration of some kind. Rain and ice probably contributed to that over the years. But it's a wait and see thing until we actually pull the windows out and see what the real problem is, and then.
Do we need to get the engineer from Des Moines in here? Because there's issues on the tower. You can go in some of those offices and those stained glass windows move in and out.
I'm not sure if we need to get the engineer from Des Moines here. What I think I would really like to do is the board had talked previously about a selection committee for architects and engineers. I'd like to see that move forward at a rapid pace, and you know, with that in mind, then possibly we could begin using those people to help us.
Okay. Mike, I think you and Mike got your heads together, and he said rather than scaffolding or renting a crane, hire one of these guys that really are good at drones, fly it around the building.
We've talked amongst ourselves about the possibility of hiring someone with a drone, or even purchasing our own drone so we could fly it around the buildings and take a look in areas we can't really see or get to. I may be bringing that back to the board relatively soon. You know what? I always get that question.
Will you be bringing that item, or will the drone bring the item?
Amazon?
Amazon, yeah. Anyway, that's all I had.
They in fact have drones at Best Buy for $1,000.
I know they do. I saw the ad, Mark. Thank you.
All right.
Mark, we did put in, we submitted some CIPs, new ones for this year. We got in our schedule here. We did put in for $85,000 for the windows, because there's no idea what it's going to cost. We got to have something there.
Yeah.
If we don't spend it, we don't borrow.
Yeah, pretty scary. Okay, Mark. The long agenda list, Mark Nera.
Well, some of these will go pretty quickly. Permits usually don't take a whole lot of time, so. First item we have is consideration of a permit for underground utilities. This is on 275th Street and proposed by Northwest Iowa Telephone.
Need a motion?
Move it.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
There are 3 copies of this one. Next item we have is permit to work in the right-of-way to allow Wallace Construction on behalf of Doug Putinson to clean a ditch along 210th Street. This is from our bridge L77 east to a field entrance that lays about 500 feet to the east. We have no issues with it.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Next item is another permit to work in the right-of-way, again for a ditch cleaning job for Fern Holtzman along her farm. This is in the Hornick area along 300th Street.
Need a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Next item we have is consideration of approval of the resolution to revise the secondary road 5-year construction program. This is to allow us to add a project. This is the final emergency relief project required to take care of the last of the slides along County Highway D38. To be able to let this through Ames, which is the route we're looking at taking this time, it needs to be added into the TPMS, which requires a resolution approved by the board to add it.
Need a motion?
Move it.
Second? Second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Now we have consideration of the approval of plans to replace County Bridge W153 This is the bridge just east of Odo that was washed out in the June 2014 flood. We're proposing to replace it with a single span beam bridge. This also includes the construction of the approaches to the new structure.
Need a motion?
Move it.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Next item we have is an information-only item for the board at this time. This is a review of proposed changes to ordinance number 1, the snow and ice removal ordinance for county roads. This ordinance hasn't been looked at or revised since 1985 when it was initially passed. There's a section in the code that provides the county protections from legal liability if they are in compliance with their snow removal ordinance with their winter snow and ice removal operations. Since 1985, the sample ordinance that's used that the majority of the counties base their snow ordinances on has had additions made to it. Some of these came out of a Supreme Court case that I was involved with back in 1993 when Cedar County was the first county sued on snow ordinance issue. We had a single car accident where the vehicle slid off the road, struck a tree off the roadside. They alleged a number of issues with what they considered unsatisfactory removal of snow off of the gravel road. We were able to show point by point how the removal of that snow from the road complied with the county policy. The judge wrote an excellent decision at the district court level that was able to cite not only what we did, but also his own knowledge of county road maintenance in the winter. And it was a case of first impression at the Supreme Court, and we won at that level. The potential loss for us was over $10 million as a 62-year-old woman was left quadriplegic and comatose with no potential reduction in her life expectancy. It could have been a terrific loss for the county. But based on what we learned with that and a couple of cases that other counties lost, there were additions made to the snow ordinances. One of them, the first change, and I have it highlighted in mine, I'm not sure if that came through on the board scans. The original snow ordinance that we passed referred to the bill that gave snow ordinance provisions. This updates it to the new state code language that was subsequent to that bill. In Section 2, level of service, we're adding some language that on occasion county personnel may be rendered unavailable due to the provisions of the Omnibus Transportation Employee Testing Act of 1991. This is the New Year's Eve scenario. We're not expecting snow. The guys party like it's 1965, and next morning we're faced with snow. They're prohibited by federal law from getting into a vehicle 8 hours after they've had a drink. So that's what this provision encompasses, is there may be a time, unlikely as it might be, that we would have to alter our snow removal response because we have nobody available to be thrown in a truck or a motor grader. Unlikely, but again, potential. Paved routes, basically we're making sure we bring this into compliance with our current policy. Looking at our hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Currently it says dusk till dawn. As you know, that's not a very precise period of time, and it varies as the winter changes. Our normal method is to have all the guys on the road by 6 a.m., off by 5 p.m. Our goal is to keep people near, or keep the schools near that 2-hour delay where they could still have school, and make sure the buses get home before we pull off the roads at night. We're proposing an addition, which is sub-item 6 on that paved route section. After roads have been plowed as proposed in this section, intersections, hills, and curves may, but not necessarily, have placed upon them salt, sand, and other abrasives. They may not be resalted or have abrasives placed on them between snow removal. Again, this is bringing this policy into compliance with what our current practice is. And practice complying with policy are the real hinge pins for having that liability protection under the code. Number 7 is also an addition, and we've done this through the CF Industries build, where we've been starting early. When we have 1,500 to 1,800 employees last year, and this year 4,400 employees changing shifts in those early hours, we're trying to get moving at 4:30 a.m. I'm proposing we have a designation of essential industrial routes, which would be that Port Neal area, where we have 24-hour-a-day operations, power plants, fertilizer plants, those type business operations. We would designate those, we would review and designate those routes each year as a board. We're confining this to paved road system. We're not getting off on gravels. We're not looking at encompassing farm operations. We're trying to take into account higher employee levels, paved road system, essential 24-hour operations. And we're also putting in here snow removal service hours may be extended to assure required personnel shift changes occur at these industries. So if we have to run a little late because of the nature of a storm, we try to encompass that in the provisions of the policy. We have had a mailbox replacement policy that was not contained in our ordinance, but our practice has been if we don't hit it with the blade, we don't fix it. A lot of times a mailbox can be taken down just by the force of heavy wet snow. In those cases, it's pretty tough for our operator to do anything about that. If the box is weak or the post is weak, I can tell Mark's heard the complaint from folks too when we go
every one of them
call.
call.
If you've ever watched one of the reporters focusing on a snow plow be knocked on their backsides by the force of snow coming off the plow, you can only imagine.
We got a sampler here we put out.
put him out and watch a plow go by. But again, if we do hit it, we get it with the blade, we break it backing up, those we do replace, and that's still encompassed in the policy. Under limitations of service, we've never had a provision, we've never removed sand, salt, and other abrasives. This does become an issue in a couple of county cases where a motorcycle is slipped on that material. I think it's important that we put it in here as part of our policy. That is not a normal part of our policy to do that. Again, we're trying to make sure that our policy complies with our practice. Another one, and this came in because of a lawsuit between an Iowa county and the Iowa Department of Transportation. Plowing, sanding, and salting or placing abrasives on any road that is not within the jurisdiction of the county unless authorized to do so by a 28E agreement between the county and the entity having jurisdiction on the road. We're not looking to go out and plow DOT roads, but if we were to do another entity's roads, we want to make sure that we have those agreements in place to cover that eventuality. Emergencies, we've added 2 paragraphs. One is that currently in Woodbury County, unlike most counties that applied the sample ordinance, there is no penalty for calling in and making a false report of an emergency in the winter. Just to give you an example of one, we had one back in Benton County, a lady that called in that she was in labor. Turned out she just wanted to get bowling that night. She wasn't even pregnant. So we hate to go out and spend a lot of effort on a supposed emergency, but there's nothing right now that gives us any teeth for going after those folks. We want to make sure that these reports come in to the sheriff's office or E911 dispatch so that they're recorded, and that if it turns out to be a false report of an emergency, that they can be charged with a violation of the ordinance.
We had one a few years back. The lady called in and said there was a car in the ditch with a baby in it. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was no car and there was no baby.
There was no car, no baby.
But she got her road plowed.
Yes, she did. And, you know, it happens to every one of the 99 at one time or another. And, but this does help put an end to it. The second one we had is we made some press a few years ago because we had a deer hunter decide to go home on a night in a blizzard. He left the place he was at where he was warm, had food and everything else, and decided to drive home, not on state routes, which were still being plowed, but on county road, and he ended up on one of our roads that typically drifts in. The overnight temperature was expected to get well below zero. Wind chills were forecast at 30 below zero. Sheriff's Department made a determination that if we didn't go after him, we were going to have a frozen corpse in the morning. We sent 2 units out. Both those operators reported it was one of the spookiest nights they'd ever been out there because there were times they couldn't see the back of the V-plow on the motor grader that was leading the 2 units out there. We never send just one, we send 2. And that's so that you have somebody there that's in close proximity to assist if there is an issue. I billed the guy, and the bill was over $330, and he did pay it. He wasn't happy about it, but he did pay the bill. We want to be sure that there's something enforceable in the ordinance that covers that, so I wrote a new paragraph. This was in conjunction. It's been reviewed by Gary Brown, Emergency Operations. Passed this along to Joshua. We discussed it in a meeting we had looking at changes to the ordinance last year. Winter road conditions can degrade to where travel is unsafe and vehicles and passengers who become snowbound outside of shelter can face life-threatening conditions. Road users need to remain aware of weather and travelers' advisories. Upon declaration by law enforcement or the National Weather Service that no travel is advised and that highways, including interstates, are closed and state and county plows have been called off the roads, drivers have 2 hours to seek shelter and get off county roads. If a driver becomes snowbound 2 or more hours after a no travel advisory is issued and requires rescue after becoming snowbound, the driver may be billed the cost of county staff and equipment time necessary to respond to the location where the driver is stranded. And, you know, when we're risking 2 men and almost $500,000 worth of equipment to go out and get somebody, I think it's only reasonable that if they make the choice to go out after travel is not advised, that there be a penalty with that. But these are my recommendations for changes. I welcome any comments or questions. We'll have to arrange for publication. This will require 3 readings to be put into place. We have, I think, 3 ordinances that we're reviewing. I'd propose to bring them all back about the same time.
So you'll bring this back next week for round 1?
Not next week, a couple of weeks, I would say, Mark.
There's been a request for a short agenda next week.
Very good. I'll see what I can do to help with that. The one I did bring back today for board consideration is the one we reviewed October 6th, and that is the policy for drainage district administration. I added that to the title after board comments last time. Maintenance and repair. One of the comments that was something that should be added to it was to have a date certain for the submittal of drainage district levies. We now have on page 1 a paragraph that states annual drainage district tax levies are to be set not later than the last board meeting ahead of May 31st of the current year. Levies shall be recommended and prepared by the county engineer's office and the Woodbury County budget director and presented to the Board of Supervisors for approval.
And Mark, on that issue, would this apply to drainage districts that are not under the control of the Board of Supervisors, or only those that are under the board?
Only those under the board, where they serve as trustees.
Okay. I don't know if there's a way that we could change this language or massage. I know that the goal of this policy is in regard to drainage districts that are under the control of the board. But I think that the treasurer's office would like to see that May 31st deadline apply to all drainage districts, whether under the board or not.
I think that's a change we could make and then still bring it back.
Yeah.
And we would just have to make them aware of that.
Right. And
I don't think that's been a problem with those that are administered by Monona County. I'm not sure how the farmers in Garrettson have done.
Yeah, and I won't speak for Mike, but just based on discussions that we have, I think that they would be willing to provide that notice, possibly.
This is like the second reading or something?
Well, this isn't an ordinance, so it doesn't require 3 readings.
Okay, you have it on the sheet as approved motion, but it's listed as information.
I didn't mean for that to be as information, but well, I guess we can
move it to next week.
Yeah, we can do that. Move it to next week, because I'd even taken the information off of the prior or off the request. But I can make that change to where it would apply to all drainage districts. The other change that was made was in section 2, the board will receive a recommendation from the county engineer on whether or not to hire a consulting drainage engineer for necessary engineering work in response to a request for maintenance. This decision on whether to hire a consulting engineer will be based on the county engineer's recommendation. Work will be assigned to the secondary road department if departmental workload allows, or to a drainage engineering consultant to review the site with the complainant. You know, we do get, especially with our bridge projects and everything else we've got going on, flood recovery projects, it's hard for us to fit in drainage district work, and it's not part of our mission as a secondary road department to do so. We've always done that as an assistance to the Board of Supervisors. I didn't make any changes to the final one. There are options. There is a code section 468.138, I believe it is, that allows the board to enter into a contract for watchman services, which basically we have a consultant under contract and on call that we immediately go to for taking a look and exploring districts to see if damage occurred during flooding.
What's Louis do?
Louis Byers, he's NRCS. He looks at primarily dams, Little Sioux River projects. This would be something where Sunquist or INS Group or, I mean, even VNK might have provision to do this type work. I'm sure that, I know that Sunquist and INS offer this service. INS Group is $76 per hour, and that covers the man coming down and checking the districts for work or for problems. I haven't spoken with Sunquist, but once this was put into place, if the board wanted to proceed with that, we could.
Very good.
It's a good idea. I'll make that last change, and we'll bring it back again next week.
Okay. H.
Next item I have is the consideration of a pre-construction agreement for work on Highway 20, 4-lane 20. This is Phase 4. This is the portion between Correctionville and the Woodbury-Ida County Line Road. This covers the installation of, I believe it's 5 roadside fillets. It also directs how some of our crossroads are going to be treated. It basically lays out that the DOT does have the ability to close those as construction requires. I think you folks have seen what's happened with this first phase of 4-lane Highway 20. We've had different roads that have closed on a rotating basis through the course of this project. It's been remarkably complaint-free once you get away from Correctionville, where they closed L36 without telling us about it. But we haven't had any difficulties since then. I think the changes to the intersection have gone smoothly. They have given us back some tremendous value with the snow traps that have been removed. Some of those Highway 20 intersections were known for plugging up with snow in the winter. Mike Gray speaks with a smile on his face when he looks at how much those intersections have changed, and it will definitely speed us getting the roads open in the winter.
Need a motion.
Move the pre-construction agreement be approved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
It also requires Pat's signature when it's done. And finally, we have the opening of quotes for work to be done. This is another roadside slide. That occurred this year with flooding down on, this is on D54, right, Ben?
Yes. It's east of Humboldt.
It was not eligible for FEMA funding, but we're treating it like we have done with the others, where we're looking at extending the culvert. We've had a number of contractors express interest in doing this work. Extending that box culvert is essential to getting the slope to be stable and not fail again in the future. So we sent out for quotes. The engineer's estimate on this project is less than $50,000. So we're anticipating, what did Ben have on there? I didn't see your final.
28.
Okay, very good. But when it's less than $30,000, we can use the alternate method of accepting quotes from a minimum of 3 eligible and capable contractors. No bid bond is required with this. First quote is from Midwest Contracting of Marshall, Minnesota. Their bid price is $42,546. $42,546. Next, we have Dixon Construction of Correctionville. Their price is $49,601.
Ben?
Next we have Graves Construction of Spencer, Iowa.
Good luck.
We still have 2 to open, so we're hoping these next couple come in better. $57,174. We may have won this bid. Finally, KP Construction of Sergeant Bluff.
KT?
KP.
KP.
Are they the ones doing the work right now for, as a subcontractor for Larry Clark? They've been doing good work, so. And their bid is $42,408. So, apparent low right now is KP Construction.
Need a motion to send it back to the engineer?
Move that the bids be,
We could take a look at this. We're getting to the point where in our year, time is somewhat essential. Yeah, we would like to get this going, so maybe we can have this one repaired before we get too far into winter.
You wanna just-
We'll review the bids, make sure they didn't make any mathematical errors, and come back with an award.
You better hurry.
I did have this for consideration, so.
Okay.
We only have to look at the 2 really low ones because there's enough gap with the other 2 that.
move that the bids be received by the county engineer and reviewed the next 10 minutes, and then come back with a recommendation.
We will.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. A suggestion, Mark, I would suggest, I don't know if you've done this, but I know Leo was at those meetings where we talked about raising taxes on rural, unincorporated people for bridges.
Mhm.
Did we ever report back to that group on what we're doing?
Well, we have that information readily available with what progress is. If the board would like me to make a report here, people could pick it up on YouTube then.
I think that'd be good.
We know we know what we've got under contract right now. We're well 2.5 years into spending the money. We have had to shift some priorities. We were able to bring in some FEMA money on one. A couple of these projects have run a little long on price too, because road relocations were required as part of the bridge project.
I think it'd be nice to show, whenever that started, what you've done by the years, and then also what you've done out of your regular budget, because they're gonna go up. I wonder if that one was through that increased taxes.
Right.
And
Well-
then the dime,
Mhm.
because that's,
The dime is a little tougher to show, although we did get $157,000 worth of gravel down on the roads, finish that part of the
well,
project. last
I'm just
week.
thinking bridges.
Yeah, we added those too, so
Yeah,
we'll,
okay.
we'll come back with a report in a couple of weeks.
All right, Siouxland District Health, Kevin.
Yes, Kevin Green, Siouxland District Health Department. This is approval of an architecture contract with RML Architects. This has been reviewed by Joshua, and also he has worked with Mike from RML to make any suggested changes that were identified. And so the contract that was presented to you is one that is in the revised state. And so what I'm requesting is just an approval and then signatures on the 3 individual documents from the Board of Supervisors.
Move the chairman be authorized to sign.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
You sat there for a long time for that, didn't you?
Didn't have anything else to do.
Can I just make one comment?
Yes.
And I mentioned this at the Siouxland District Board of Health meeting, just because I don't think it'll affect anything seismically, but as we go through the LED changeover, you'll work hand in hand to make sure that one doesn't get in the way of the other.
Yeah.
In some of those areas, I haven't seen what they're gonna do, but I know that they're changing out all to LED. And so, we're gonna use the same engineers that they used for this project. So the application should go pretty simple.
You
Okay,
need to
great.
get a
Thank you, Mike.
copy of this to Pat Gill. Okay. All right, Mr. Ung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item is for information this week and action the following week with an attachment. Certainly open to suggestions and comments in drafting that attachment for next week. I'm excited about this. I believe we can institute a new process to add transparency to the creation and function of committees, similar to the action we took to direct the auditor's office to maintain contracts in a central location. And I believe this can be done with a standardized form that can be used very easily, as we have likewise used the agenda request form to give more information to the board and to the public as we put items on the agenda. As a new supervisor, it's been a little confusing to me to hear veteran supervisors debate whether certain committees are active or have expired when that should be clearly defined. But as I said, this is a process to influence the creation of committees for a special purpose, which is one of 4 types of committees that our bylaws deal with, as well as to begin archival of all types of committees for easy and transparent access by the public and county officials. This form can be a catch-all sort of form to define to the public and the board which committees are required by Iowa Code 28E agreement, or committees for a special purpose, which are the sort of committees we've been creating throughout this year. The current problem as it exists, it's easy, almost too easy, to create a committee, but it's extremely difficult to stay up to date on the function, members, or even the names of committees. I've included some examples to illustrate my point. In some cases, the committee members are changed without documentation, or board members are confused whether committees begin by consensus, motion, or resolution. This confusion spills over to the media and the public, not knowing whether a committee was made or if it's going to come back for approval. That's just the process problem. It's not necessarily anything else. In other cases, committees exist for years without meeting, and without recalling the exact date of its creation, further details are impossible to find either from board members or the public, and even impossible for the auditor's office to dig up, which is, they're normally charged with record keeping. Therefore, I believe the board needs to separate the actual standing committees that we believe to be necessary from those instances where, say, 2 people meet over coffee, or a flexible work group works through a bidding process at the direction of the chair, which is simply day-to-day operations. I'm talking about committees that are established for a special purpose, at least have some semblance of an idea of how often they would meet, have defined members, and have a defined purpose, which can just be one sentence clearly stated, published on the website, along with the liaison assignments that we already publicize to be transparent. All committees should be posted online with their basic information kept updated for the benefit of both the board and the public. And so, just reading from my agenda item, in consultation with the auditor and Deputy Jessen, I believe committees of all types should submit a form for board approval when created or changed. They must stipulate, according to Article 6 in the bylaws, whether the committee is required by Iowa code, yada yada, all the different types of committees. And there is currently no way for either the board or the public to discern a committee's type, whether it's required by law or whether it's discretionary. I believe the form should simply state the following: the name, a simple purpose, when it was created or when it was mandated by law, state the members' names or the positions. This has been a little confusing in the past if we're appointing a person or we're appointing the liaison to that position, or say the chairman. Those definitions change members. And then, if known, state the intended frequency of meetings. I don't intend this to be pejorative or an obstacle, but if you know you're going to meet weekly, if you know you're going to meet monthly, or if you're ad hoc, then you don't know, and you would just state that clearly. We also did agree that the committees already in existence should be directed to complete these details and gain board approval within a deadline, simply to have their creation archived on the Board of Supervisors tab of the website, along with other relevant information such as minutes, if they are published or not, and any changes in the committee. So if a committee changes members, the board should be aware of that and the public should be aware of that. And with this process, the board could simply look up the minutes independently, or the public could look up who is on a committee and how often they expect to meet, as well as if their function has changed over the years. The form, in my opinion, must also note that special committees in particular, special committees or committees formed for a special purpose, to quote the bylaws, would be reauthorized every year or they will naturally sunset. This would eliminate the confusion whether committees are still in force. So if we can, defend their purpose every year, then they will stay active. Otherwise, when they've fulfilled their purpose, I do think it, is helpful to cut out some layers of bureaucracy or confusion, and as it may be. Again, I think this measure eliminates confusion that's passed on to the public. It gets us away from he said, she said arguments as it regards committees that may exist or not. So I anticipate to have a very simple form before the board next week. I'm working with the auditor's office on. As I said, the form must state those 5 very simple facts, and in addition to being archived in the same spot on the website, this will give people a chance to break down the committees and see how they've been meeting. Unless a liaison brings back a committee report to this board, it probably won't get picked up by the general public, and if it's in committee assignments, it might not be posted anywhere for them to read themselves. So I think it's a very simple fix to a very simple problem, and be happy to entertain any questions or suggestions on this.
Yesterday, I believe, and today, I had a tab created on the website next to the board minutes for committee meeting minutes. And I think we got the rural economic development on there and Prairie Hills stuff on there. So it's a start.
And some minutes wouldn't have to be necessarily required, but if they are, this would be a chance to be able to publish them for the...
Right. Certain committees are under no requirement to have minutes, but if they are, if they do exist, they should be forwarded to the auditor's office. And that's part of the motion next week would be to authorize the auditor's office to compile and assemble these committee information and minutes on the website so that there is a point of contact whenever committees would create minutes or be created.
I think it's a good idea for transparency, public information, and I appreciate that you delineate between a working group and a standing committee. And I think it's important for the public, like I'm on planning and zoning, but I'm not a member of that, so it's good to see what a liaison is versus somebody who's an observer or conduit. So I look forward to seeing your form.
And in the future, I think it'd certainly be helpful for the liaison assignments that we approve every year to be broken out a little more specifically, where we would, and I've talked about this with the auditor, that we would approve the mandated committees where the board is mandated to have representation. And then separate from that, we would approve special committees. And then throughout the year, if a special committee is created or changed, we would act on that as a board attachment item separately without having to go and reapprove the whole list for the year of special committees. And that would clearly separate it, because right now there are committees that are on the website through liaison assignments and there are committees that are not. So this will just put it all in easily accessible location.
Okay, you'll bring it back next week?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Nara.
Well, on this, I appreciate what Matthew's tried to do here, because we run into, in the last couple months, committees that are meeting. Most of us on the board don't even know there's committees have been formed. Some of them are called ad hoc, but I just think this is a good step so that we know who's doing what and what's occurring. Because I've been in the dark quite a bit, and hopefully this will help.
Mark?
Having reviewed the bids, we recommend award to Midwest Contracting, LLC, $42,546. They were the second low quote, $138 difference from the other bid. They are using a precast box, which will allow swifter construction in this period. Midwest is also a DOT certified contractor. KP isn't. We've allowed them to take on a project to work with them. We do have it in the special provisions for this project. Special provision number 103. The County Board of Supervisors reserves the right to evaluate each quote and award contract which in their judgment will best serve the interest of the county. I believe the use of the precast box sections out here will serve our best interest and allow us to get this road done.
This is a winter project?
Timely manner. Yes.
Need a motion?
Casting a lot less concrete.
Midwest Contracting?
Midwest Contracting, LLC of Marshall, Minnesota.
I move that the contract be awarded to Midwest Contracting LLC of Marshall, Minnesota for $42,546.
Need a second?
Second, and the overage is coming from where? Is that Ben or?
Pardon me?
You must have gotten a raise I didn't know about.
This is one where, looking at the unit prices, we're a little surprised, but it also is a tight timetable with a November 30 start date, 20 working days. We're expecting a lot out of that contractor. It's disappointing, but we need to get this work done.
It was an estimate.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Okay. We're going to recess the Board of Supervisors and begin the Bennett McDonald Smithland Drainage District meeting to consider approval of a quote for a survey work on the Bennett McDonald Smithland Drainage District.
One of our deficiencies in the management of the levees that protect the town of Smithland and properties in the surrounding area has been that we are starting to get farm encroachment. within the profile of the levee. We also have areas where we have trees that need to be removed. It's hard to tell whether some of them are on private or on public property. We don't want to cut the wrong trees and end up with folks taking issue with the county over that. We contacted one firm, V&K, Veenstra and Kim Incorporated of Sergeant Bluff, and have received a quote for survey work. This includes the necessary research to go out and reconstruct the original survey so that we can reestablish these property lines and begin to manage that levee property on behalf of the board. I recommend award of the contract to Veenstra and Kim for a lump sum of $8,400.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Butler.
Don't go far, Mark.
I won't.
Okay, we have a resolution before you. This did come late Friday afternoon. We did get it on the board agenda because it's necessary, because we are kind of under a timetable on this resolution. This resolution relates to financing county road projects, improvements to be undertaken by Woodbury County, establishing compliance with reimbursement bond regulations and the Internal Revenue Code. What this does, it does make our bonds tax exempt. The reasons this came up, there were expenditures made on a RISE grant program that went into the main CF road project. This is the only one that affects. There were expenses made prior to the 60 days, so those are not reimbursable through the loan. Mark did have them covered in his budget. So when we get down to the bottom line, our RISE grant went from $800,000 down to our share of $321,407, which our share from the loan will be $147,000. So the difference here will be that this will cover the paving down there, I believe, going into the CF plant. And then it'll actually save us, instead of borrowing $800,000, we'll only borrow $147,000, which saves us $652,000.
And I want to explain where that extra, or that difference came from. As you recall, our original grant was for about $4.3 million to build the road serving CF. Under the agreement, that would have put about $800,000 that would have been the county share of that entire project. One of the things that we were able to do, and we did this with the cooperation of Sioux City, was we were able to bring STP funds to the Port Neal interchange project to allow us to repave from exit 135 to Port Neal Road. That was $550,000 of federal aid funds that we were able to use to match that RISE money instead of having to go out for a loan or a bond for that cost. So we were able to save from what we had originally anticipated and budget for this project by being able to leverage other funds. And that's one of those where Sioux City has a lot more votes than we do, yet they recognize that for the time being, the Port Neal interchange is the South Bridge interchange. So we do appreciate their assistance with getting that money.
You also see in section 1 or section 2A, we did put $3 million as a maximum cap. The reason we did that, to cover any costs up to there that could qualify under this resolution. To make it clear, Dogwood Trail is not covered by this because we did not expend money yet. Sergeant Bluff spent the money. This will come through a process we're going to be doing next month and a half. And the AGP road has not been bid out yet, so we haven't expended any money there. So the bottom line is, with this resolution passed, we get coverage. We'll be able to be reimbursed $147,000, which is our 20% share of the RISE paving project going to CF.
Need a motion. I'll move it. Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. There you go.
The chair signs that, and the county auditor test it. If we're close to after agenda items here, one thing we'll be coming back with next week is an RFP for our audit services. I have had Joshua approve, review it. We did that one change that he suggested, so that'll be in your board packet to be approved next week. Information, discussion, and action to go out to bid.
Very good. Committee reports.
Mr. Chairman, the Woodbury County Rural Economic Development Committee met, and minutes are now posted online. We were waiting for approval of them by the members. I want to pass out to you not only a press release that David Gleiser is putting out, but also the minutes from this past meeting. The majority of the time, and I won't read the minutes, I know it's late, but the majority of the time was in discussing that Monday, November 16th at the Anthony Community Center from 6 to 8 p.m. will be an opportunity for not only this board, but for the rural mayors and their staffs to be able to come together and to discuss the future of local option sales tax, as well as needs that are present as pertains to rural economic development. There's a survey that David Gleiser has put together in which he is distributing those at the meeting to be able to get more information on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats or obstacles in the future. So I wanted to distribute not only the minutes of the meeting, but also the information pertaining to the meeting that this full board is invited to and will be posted as a public meeting, as well as any information that came from that meeting.
Supervisor Taylor, I think we're going to have quite a crowd. I don't know if you saw, this was reprinted almost verbatim, front page of the Mobile Record this week.
Well, food will be on hand, and that's one of the things that we are planning for, and hoping it will be a good meeting, and that there will be good ideas and discussion.
Should be good. November 23rd is the town hall meeting in Danbury, and that's being set up. We'll get notice out this week or next week so that everything is up and running. I have I think we got this, no. I had a conversation this afternoon with Kenny and Mike, and Mike and Kenny's recommendation is that we build a platform between the two pillars, going to the outer side of the pillar, back, and then to the outer side of the pillar on each side. Because of regulations, it either has to be 8 inches or 16 inches because of a step. I suggested a foot. Well, you can't have a foot. It's got to be 8 inches with, or 16 with a step. So their recommendation was 16 inches, and it would cover this area to the back wall. There would be an arch from the front side of that pillar around to the front side of that pillar, something similar to this, but we would be closer to the audience. They can start on that whenever we're ready, and $500, and they would take it out of their budget begrudgingly.
Is this permanent?
No, it would just be sitting here.
I'm wondering about the historical angle. Will you have to go through
We have
that
a
or not?
historical issue down here. It wouldn't be nailed to anything or tied to anything.
It's on the floor. It would just be, essentially just be a riser. It would lay on the floor. So I wouldn't think there'd be any issue with that. I can sure run it by the people.
Sure.
I think you better check.
As long as we don't fall off it. My friend just went to a dinner and they were elevated, and she backed up, and she fell, and she broke her wrist, and they had to put a plate and 2 needles in it, so I'm...
That's why it goes to the back wall.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I don't wanna fall off anything.
Yeah.
From a liability perspective, we don't want to see anything
Exactly, it would not be pretty.
And there's actually not that much room back here. You know, you could easily fall off the thing.
On this meeting, are we gonna have information on what, has been discussed up to now?
Yes, there are copious meeting minutes that are provided. I think in your right hand are the meeting minutes from the last meeting, and previous meeting minutes have been distributed as well. If you need a copy of the previous minutes from the earlier meeting, I have extra copies as well.
Well, it just says, provide you with an update on how Woodbury County is working to better serve you.
Are you looking at the November
6th, 2015.
What do you have in your right hand, Larry?
I'm looking at this one.
The meeting minutes are on a separate page. That one, that's...
This is what's going to be covered at this meeting?
Right, there's discussion of what will be covered, as well as on the second page, there's, if you want to say a program, for lack of a better term, but specific parameters as far as time goes and who will be presenting on things as varied as the potential creation of a CDC, discussion of local option sales tax, how we got to this point, strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, as well as the survey that we'll be delivering for garnering more information. So that portion that's bold-faced on the last portion of the minutes is the program, so to speak.
Okay.
Okay.
I have one.
Yes.
Met with the Emergency Management Commission recently. For the board's knowledge, the proposed fiscal year 17 budget that was approved by the Emergency Management Commission is last year was $85,900. For the upcoming year would be $105,597, representing an 18% increase in total salaries and benefits and an overall 23% increase. This has a public hearing on December 2nd, where further reductions could be made. That would be the last point. Full disclosure, I did vote against this because of the increase along with two of the mayors. But as a reminder to the board, if the Board of Supervisors here does reject this as it's amended, the commission does have recourse to directly levy taxes on its own. So that is an option that they have been made aware of when they asked me what the county angle is. The code, just like last year, says that the commission sets their budget by February 28th, and we set ours by March 15th. So I don't know what if any changes are gonna be made by December 2nd, but that will be the final hearing for this budget.
Anyone else?
I don't have a county meeting to report on, but I was invited by the Sioux City School District to be principal for a day. So I got to go on Monday to Leeds Elementary. Had a very engaging day. Saw a lot of great learning opportunities for kids. I believe it's kind of like Dr. Gausman explained it as the program is like a police academy, but it's principal for a day. It's just to create community awareness about what they do, and it was a fun day. I really liked it.
Joshua, it was brought up earlier about attending meetings, and Pat, you were going to get us an opinion on that.
I asked for, and I got an informal opinion, is that go to any of those meetings, you just simply have to post it as a county meeting. Yeah.
So any meeting that's posted as a county meeting you can go to?
Yeah, if you post a meeting, and more, it's just a good practice is that if you're more than three or more, you're going to be at a meeting, is that you post it as a county meeting, that you're participating in, and county business is being discussed.
Okay. So then, Is the meeting for the region posted?
They post it.
It's posted by them, but if more than 3 or more of you are going to attend and discuss county business.
Well, no, let's see, we're not gonna discuss county business. You go to the meeting to hear what's going on.
Here's what happened last time, is you went to the meeting and then you came back and reported on it. You were doing county business.
I never reported on a meeting.
Yes.
No, sir.
I think what he's saying is that we have to post it, no, just like Eddie. Joshua, can you answer on this?
Well, the best practice is certainly if we know there's going to be, excuse me, if we know there's going to be a quorum of this board at a meeting, the best practice is just to have this board post the notice that they're all going to be there. And then we don't have to worry about any concerns. Otherwise, you have to get into, are you going as a member of the public, as a citizen, as a taxpayer versus your official duties, but it's hard to separate those, especially if information or discussions that you witnessed in that meeting, you're going to later discuss in the supervisors meeting. So, I mean, if you're looking for a recommendation, the recommendation would be to post the notice from this board.
So if I want to go, let's say, to the region meeting, I would direct Karen just to post it, or which one of the board? I mean, I would think the chairman would do it, but can I do it?
Well, it would go through the chairman.
I can have that posted. Now, the other question is, do you do business while you're there?
Well, I mean, you shouldn't be. I mean, certainly.
Well, if it's posted.
Is that why you post it?
Well, is Pat going to go and take minutes?
Well, that's up to Pat.
What I can simply do there is that it's the person who's taking the minutes at that meeting to take the minutes. Minutes are posted at the meeting, that's all that's required to be.
Right.
Don't volunteer, man, you.
I mean, it should be, for the most part, just to observe rather than to discuss, negotiations between the county and the region. I mean, if you have a public meeting, there should be a tentative agenda if you know what things are going to be discussed. But it's really not a proper procedure for the entire Board of Supervisors to go to a board where members of the supervisors are on the board. The two representatives of this board are on the board and participate in the meeting, and they have the official role, and it would kind of be outside the realm of normal procedure for the board to go, the entire board to go and to discuss interactions between the 2080 entity and this board.
But you could go and observe.
Correct.
If it's posted.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's why I got that opinion from you prior to going to that meeting, that it was permissible to go.
Correct. And you were very clear at the meeting that you were there as a citizen and not.
Yep, never said a word.
Correct.
But you did when you came back in a board meeting.
Well, in the discussion of what occurred up there, from what I was.
That's reporting back.
Okay, it's reporting back, so then we just have to post when we're gonna go to those meetings, and then everything's fine.
There we go. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.